Hello everybody, it's me. It's the film guy. I'm a film guy. I like films. What can I say? Let's talk about some silly little films, shall we? Come on, follow me. So let's start this video by pissing some people off with Turning Red. This is Pixar's newest film about an adolescent girl that tries to hide her inner furry. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really care about this one. I really wasn't invested in any of the characters, along with the writing being not funny to me personally. The story being told should have been handled with more care because this is actually an important idea being expressed. I think this film should have been more about actual periods instead of dancing around the idea so much. I know it's a kids movie, but kids need to learn about this stuff, both guys and girls. I understand that this film is about embracing your emotions or whatever, but they have a rough time getting around to that theme. One scene near the beginning I thought was very strange, was basically relaying the message of, if you express certain thoughts in your head, you will be ridiculed by your peers. Not the best thing to put into kids' heads, but whatever. And also, the mom was so unaware of the whole situation during that specific scene. I found that to be a little frustrating to watch. Speaking of the mother, I found her to be kind of, a psychotic parent. Also, side note, a little bit of a tangent. Near the end, they were at a concert talking amongst each other, but they were talking like normally and almost like very quiet. And I was just sitting there thinking, this is a concert with like people screaming around them. Overall, I really wish there was more to be invested in for me personally, or for something to feel emotional over, but I kind of got nothing from this movie, and I'm giving this a strong 4 out of 10, closer to a 5. Next is The Godfather. This film had its 50th anniversary recently, which I was able to view in a movie theater. Thank God. This is not my first time seeing this film, and it probably won't be my last. I love this film. This is a classic. From the incredibly dense and detailed story to the beautiful cinematography, all wrapped together with iconic performances that are still referenced in media to this day, it's no surprise that this film is beloved still so many years later. This film was directed by Francis Ford Coppola back in the 1970s and follows the lives within the Corleone family. As I said earlier, this film is absolutely filled to the brim with material. The film is rich with detail. Characters, large and small, are very well defined and add quite a bit to the story. There was clear intent within the technicals. The film's pacing and editing is incredible, both sequential as well as specific scenes. The filmmakers would take their time on certain scenes. A perfect scene that comes to mind for me is the hospital scene. From the sense of how it fits within the narrative to the slow build of suspense within the scene itself, it's extremely effective. The visuals and the lighting were so dramatic and beautiful. Whenever someone got shot or a hit took place, the camera would hold on the scene, and it would be framed like it were a painting. The use of shadows in this film was so revolutionary and impactful that it has been studied for many years by critics, and is a reference point for many cinematographers. The cast was absolutely perfect. Marlon Brando does a career-defining performance as Vito, as well as Al Pacino as Michael Corleone. I could sit and list everybody from this movie. They all do a fantastic job. There's 1,000 things you can pick up from the performances. The story knew just the right amount of information about the characters to give. The character of Michael Corleone was a veteran in the army, but it doesn't fully explain what he went through during his time. There's a lot of nuances to this character, as well as past experiences that led him to this position. Several characters go through really satisfying arcs through the story that all lead to one of my favorite final shots of any movie. The film's fantastic, lengthy, but I wouldn't want it any other way. And this film deservedly gets a 10 out of 10. And this little film gets a spot on the favorites list. Whoop. Next up is a movie called Rat Film, directed by Anthony Theo. This is a documentary about rat infestations throughout the history of Baltimore. However, this film is something significantly more than that. This film discusses racial discrimination and segregation in areas of Baltimore that are primarily black communities, ideas of self-worth, as well as doing a fantastic job documenting certain living conditions in the United States. The pacing of its information is incredibly brisk yet impactful. Many shots have just a white background with only snapshots of the information needed. There was something about the way this film is presented that just worked for me. What I love about this film is that the ideas discussed are very interpretable. This film places rats, a creature that many consider as pest or vermin, to have the same value as a person, and connecting ideas from rats to people. The music and sound choices caused some scenes to be very hypnotic. It's a confident film that was excellent at presenting its ideas. For a film that's only 80 minutes, this was a completely filling experience. I have never seen anything from this director before, but after seeing this was a wonderful start. I really liked this movie. I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. The next film I watched was a documentary called License to Kill by the director Arthur Dong. This documentary feature follows a group of convicted murderers over the killings of gay men in the 1990s. The subject matter in this film is very brutal and shows very graphic crime scenes, and showing the absolute hatred towards gay people and just people in the LGBTQ community. The whole runtime focuses on killings, so even though I think this film is very important, please be cautious if you decide to watch this. I think the subject matter is incredibly important to discuss, and the level of personal details from the prisoners I thought was very insightful. However, in saying that, I do think the presentation could have used some work. I think the flow of the film was not superb. There was one prisoner that they would constantly jump back to. I didn't think he added that much to the film, as well as the overall pacing and the presentation of the film being a little lackluster. All that aside, I think this film is still effective at its goals. I found the subjects interviewed to be very insightful in many areas. The more they opened up about their past lives, insecurities, and some of the confused thoughts that they had, it really shed a light on how damaging the anti-LGBT rhetoric was in the 80s and 90s. But not only 80s and 90s, you can even see it to this day. The movie dives into ideas of deeply repressed emotions as well as religious and, quote, moral reasons for their actions. These are very real problems that we face in this world. One thing that I like about this film is that it gives patience to the convicted murderers. I wanted to listen to what they had to say. There were some people, however, that I felt absolutely disgusted by, but their story of how they got to that point was worth documenting. The violence shown towards gay individuals is absolutely abhorrent, and some people throughout all of history would just use their influence and platform to just spew hatred and use people's insecurities against them to further continue the violence. Overall, this film was tough, thorough, and worth watching. I'm gonna rate this a 7 out of 10. Also, a little footnote, if you don't think therapy should be a free and easily accessible service, then this movie might make you feel otherwise. Therapy is important. Therapy is important. Next up is Killer's Kiss by Stanley Kubrick. This is, I believe, the only film I haven't seen from the legendary director Kubrick. It was a quick watch, only being about an hour long. I really liked the visuals and cinematography in this film. The performances were fine, but some were a little strange to me. One in particular was a guy trying to do a southern accent. It sounded kinda goofy. There was a lot of exposition for such a short film. The movie does a complete halt and just does a full backstory for a certain character. I really didn't connect with this one all that much. The film was alright, and I'm gonna give this one a little baby 6 out of 10. Really close to a 5. So moving along, recently was the birthday of one of my favorite directors, Andrei Tarkovsky. So to celebrate his career, I rewatched Ivan's Childhood. This is Tarkovsky's first feature film about a child who partakes in World War II. Some people would describe Tarkovsky's films as visually poetic and profound. And even from his first film, that is very apparent. The visuals, the depths of certain scenes, the lighting, and the environment being covered in fog all do a wonderful job creating a very hazy and dreamlike atmosphere. The story is pretty light in this film, and the runtime is only a brisk 95 minutes. The acting for the most part is pretty great, especially from the kid actor. Even though this isn't the strongest of his works for me personally, I still love and recommend this film, and all of his films. This film is lighter than his other works, yet it still gets across the taste of what's to come. That being said, though, this film still works on its own, and if you haven't seen a Tarkovsky film before, this would be a wonderful place to start. And I'm gonna give this one a strong 7 out of 10, really close to an 8. This film also bounces between an 8 and a 7, like, frequently in my head, so take it as you will. Scratch that, it's an 8 out of 10. I thought about it a little bit more. 8 out of 10. Not a 7, it's an 8. The next film I watched was Jackass Forever. This is the 4th film in the Jackass cinematic universe. Now, I really love the other films. I always had to be secretive and watch them at my friend's house because my parents didn't allow it. However, this is the first one that I could just rent without any fear of getting in trouble. My childhood is fading away. It is dying. There are ideas of aging that is definitely discussed in this film, but fuck themes. Fuck that. People are getting hit in the balls. You know what you're getting into from the beginning of this film. People are getting hit and falling over. However, I must say, this is probably the best produced one out of all of them. The opening was incredibly well done with a set and everything. There was a cameraman specifically for Steve-O's gooch, One thing I thought really helped with the presentation of this film was the sound design. I never thought I would be discussing the sound design in a Jackass film, but here I am. When a specific action took place, the sounds they decided to use were very brutal. It really helped sell the punch of a scene. When someone would get hit with something, you really felt it. I love this film, and I think Aaron got the most shit out of everybody. And the paddleball scene gave me a new phobia, and I still think about it like weeks later. And I'm giving this one, it's dumb, funny, and a good time out of 10. And the last film I'm going to talk about today is Everything Everywhere All at Once. This film is from the directors Daniel Shaner and Huy Quan, the creators of the film Swiss Army Man. While I didn't really care for Swiss Army Man and found it to be lacking in some areas, I personally think that their newest film is not only miles better, but something to be considered an absolute masterpiece. The plot of this film, while not being wholly original, is incredibly fresh and unique, along with being clearly and passionately inspired. This film, like their previous film, is trying to balance a fusion of drama and humor while trying to tell a story with really absurd elements. I think that they've really improved and come a long way with that style of storytelling. This film is filled with action, comedic levity, and genuinely emotional moments. I truly understood how emotional this film was for me after really thinking about it and seeing it for a second time. This film purposefully clashes emotions all over the place, and I personally think they nailed every emotional attempt with flying colors. The pacing, timing, and the edit helped create some really funny and creative moments. I loved how perfect the music worked with the pacing and editing of the movie. The score flowed beautifully with the movement and action of certain scenes. The best example would be in the beginning with the laundromat scene. The music not only fitting well with the movie, but being a beautiful composition that stayed in my head well after the film was over. This film, on a technical and personal note, was perfect for me. One thing I need to say is that the action and choreography was fantastic, with a lot of smooth scenes that had a lot of weight to it. There was so much charm and charisma added to the fight scenes, as well as the directors and crew always finding something creative and interesting for the action and visuals. One thing I thought really helped elevate the fight scenes were the characters and the story. The story was handled very well and was beautiful and heartfelt. This film was very emotional for me and many audience members alike. I loved all the performances, and the main performances were incredible. Huy Quan, Michelle Yeoh, and Stephanie Hsu all do a wonderful job when it came to comedic timing, stunt work, as well as delivering a heartbreaking performance. This film carries a lot of influences on its sleeves. It shows love to the creativity of action within Jackie Chan films, to the emotional beauty of Wong Kar-wai films, as well as films like The Matrix, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and much more. This film is a love letter to everything. You can really feel the love of film as a medium all throughout this movie. Along with so much more, this film is a blast, you guys. Please see this film with an audience, on a big screen. Please, please, please. With everything I said about this movie in mind, to learn that this was truly an independent film with a limited crew was infinitely inspiring to me. I could go on and on about this film. I love this film the more I think about it, and I loved it more the second time I watched it. And I easily give this film a 10 out of 10. This is all for the video for today. Thank you guys for watching it. If you got this far, what are your thoughts on them? And yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Please leave a like, maybe subscribe. But that's all for me. Ta-ta.